There's a story that's ongoing. I don't know if you've paid attention or not, but over the weekend, Trump actually drew his line in the sand on the Epstein files, and he went out and posted on Truth Social that AG Pam Bondi is doing a fantastic job, that the Epstein files were created by the Russia hoaxers. So needless to say, this statement was not very popular with his supporters. Now, it received more replies than likes. They called that a ratio online. So this is the first time that he's actually ever been ratioed on his own platform. So gentlemen, when we look at this, where do we go from here, right? This story has been ongoing now for over a week, yet now we get the re-up. We get to start talking about it like it's a brand new thing because of this post that we saw on True Social on Saturday night.
Well, look, I'm not going to make any bones about it. I mean, certainly the way in which this was rolled out, the way in which it was initially rolled out by DOJ, I'd say that was botched. But in terms of what's happening now, yeah, this wasn't my favorite post by Trump. Not everyone can have a banger every single time, which he generally does. He's the world historical king of posting. Among the posters, he is unmatched. But here we see Trump drawing a line in the sand. You said, yeah, I mean, he's also defending his own people, which is understandable. Right now you have the left like ravenous wolves finally realizing, cluing in that, oh, there's something here and trying to attack. And so, of course, Trump is going to offend or to defend his pick. He's going to defend Bondi. And also, it seems to be the policy of the administration is this is something that we're gonna move on from. And he says that in a serious way. And also, he mentions here that these files, this information has already been doctored and used by people who are enemies of the administration and enemies of MAGA. There's no doubt some truth to that. So is this satisfactory to a lot of people out there? No. On the other hand, there are reasons that he wants to move on. And I don't think any of them have to do with Trump himself being involved with Epstein. I think there's larger reasons.
Yeah, if he was involved with Epstein, we would know it. And that's how the Biden administration would have dropped this, and they don't care what impact it has on the royal family, and they don't care what impact it has on retired Democratic presidents who are already somewhat persona non grata, except when they need to show up at rallies like Bill Clinton. They would have done that. They would have burned down half the country, as they actually kind of did, in order to stop him from becoming president again. To Trump, this is a distraction. This is something that's pulling away from what ought to have been an extremely glorious week for the administration, and honestly was like an incredible amount of accomplishments for this administration. The things that they were pushing, the agenda that they were setting is now unleashed. Now we have to wait to see what the deportation numbers actually start to look like, but that's his anger here. The problem is they screwed it up so bad that they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to release something. And guess what? A little bit might have worked the first time. But now it's not. Now you got to come home with flowers. And honestly, that's actually not quite going to be enough to make her not angry anymore. You're going to have to go all out. You're going to have to watch Secret Lives of Mormon Housewives with your wife every night for 5 days, which means more than just a little bit. More, it's a serious tax on the mind and the soul. But it's going. That's the position they put themselves in. They should have handled it differently. They didn't. I mean, heck, they could have just said this was military intelligence. Sorry,
right.
It's over.
And that I think that would have satisfied a lot of people more
like,
so
we know.
than the way that it did. Yeah, because I think that at the end of the day, of course, that's probably what we're all talking about here. But right now, it feels like this isn't just the Epstein files, right? That's the topic that this is focused on. But it feels like this has turned into a bigger issue of trust in the administration, right? This isn't, this is what we voted for. This isn't what we voted for. When the people at home are reading this narrative, because it was so botched on the delivery, and there wasn't just the, hey, these are the things that we're doing. I think that if you actually go through and read Trump's post on True Social, and you do get to the, okay, well, there's more here than meets the eye. If they had gone with that narrative out of the gates, we might be sitting here a little different a week later. We might not have this conversation, but right now we're looking at trust in the administration as a whole.
Yeah, this is the key point. What people voted for and what they want is to reform these agencies, reform the departments of government that have lost their trust. Most significantly, those departments that actually have to do with the basis of the rule of law in America at the federal level. That is the Department of Justice. The name of the department is the Department of Justice. It stands for justice. So The problem here is that this was promises made about, oh, we have all this information, and then all of a sudden, no, we don't, and there's nothing to see here. And then Trump actually, as you point out, gives a little bit more in this post, a little more color to it. So I don't think this is a insurmountable obstacle, but I do think that it's not a good look for Pam Bondi in the way she handled it. Just we have to be honest about this. And also, you have to give people something, as you're saying, because there's a lot here that we know about already. Look, this has been around for a long time. We know a lot about Epstein for all the mystery of it. We know a lot about what he was involved with, who he interacted with. And okay, so maybe you can't put out, some perfect bit of information about it, but you got to give us something. And the problem here was that memo was a very weird memo that they put out in a very weird context. And it was sort of saying, there's nothing to see here. And everyone knows, well, that's not true, right? We know there's something to see there. So, you have to pick your battles, though. Chris has made this point early in the show. You have to pick your battles about what you want to focus on. There's a lot to focus on when it comes to justice in the past, right? Epstein stands for that. And so you got to give people something, even if you want to focus on other things. And I don't think that's particularly hard to do, but it's a complicated situation because you probably have at least 2 intelligence agencies, probably international concerns. You have a lot of people who are implicated that everyone's been talking about from Musk, on out for a long time. Reid Hoffman, right, his nemesis, he's always saying he was going there, we're going to release this. So it's a messy situation, but I think at the end of the day, if you really want to get over it, you give the people something and you show a little bit more, acknowledge a little bit more. Don't treat people like they're stupid and they don't know what's going on.
You can't say, listen, you can't read my emails, you can't look what's behind this door. You're not allowed to. It's private, it's personal. Okay, you know what? Actually, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. It's like, that is a fib that may have worked earlier in the evening, but it no longer works now.
Yeah.
Well, when you go from the files are on my desk to here are the binders, right? Having everybody go out there just not too far from here.
It was a Curb Your Enthusiasm moment.
Over at the White House. Here, go ahead and look at this. It's, of course, there's going to be redactions in there, but we'll give you the binders full of Epstein. Well, and now they're like,
Binders of women.
Just kidding. Right, exactly. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mitt Romney. The tone, the way that they've gone about it, there are 20 other ways that we could have done this where I think people might be like, oh, okay, we understand what you're saying. It's just the order of operations that we see here is a really hard one to defend.
So I've got I don't know if I'm white-pilled or black-pilled. I actually don't know which one on this because I'm the guy
I think you're white-pilled.
Am I? Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't care.
I don't
No.
care. I don't think this administration will be defined by crimes from the 90s and 2000s that it prosecuted. I think it'll be defined by whether or not it can reindustrialize America, change our trade regime, and deport the foreign invasion. If they can do that, they can end birthright citizenship. If the wall is finished in 4 years, if the deportation numbers get to where the money now allows it to get, people have been rightfully complaining that the deportations have been more show than tell over the last 6 months, but that's because there was no money. Now you got $47 billion. I want to see something for that. If you can do these sorts of things, you change the country that my daughter grows up in. If you prosecute the Epstein list, unfortunately, powerful people will still do awful things and intelligence agencies will still leverage it. It's old. But what will change the country for my children, that's the agenda.
Yeah, so I would agree with you that the main issue is mass deportation. That's still at the heart of everything in the administration.
Stephen Miller was right.
Stephen Miller is
always right.
Usually right about everything. The one caveat here is that if you're not going to go into Epstein, and I agree, there's other things that should be the tip of the spear for the intelligence agencies. Here's the problem for a lot of people in Washington is you do have to actually reform these agencies. I mean, if you're going to save America, you have to reform these agencies because take Russia collusion, take what they were allowed to do. They were allowed to ruin an entire presidency and thwart the will of the people. Really in one of the most egregious forms that we've ever seen in American history. This is in many ways far worse than Watergate, what they did. So you're not going to change that.
Speaking of
without
CIA operations.
Yeah, with people like Brennan, punishing people like that, but even more than that, without structurally changing the way in which these agencies operate, which is almost tiresome to say when you're sitting in this town, because people just don't think that's possible. They don't think it's desirable, and they think it's, way out of bounds. It's just not even in the realm of possibility, but that's what people voted for. So what I would say is, okay, if you don't want to make Epstein the tip of the spear, fine, but this is not going to go away in the sense that people really want to see change at FBI, at CIA, et cetera, and they want to believe in the Department of Justice again. And, what we've seen in the last few weeks, like, that ain't it, Chief. That's not going to work.
And the president, I think he underestimates the disappointment here and what's been
Yes.
built in. That silly gay nickname, Daddy, but it's based on the idea of, you're here to fix all the things.
Right.
We trust you to take care of the bad guys. You're going to tell us the truth. Maybe sometimes Daddy is going to say bedtime.
Right.
It's so creepy to say it. I can't believe the NATO guy said it. It's like, oh, that's not translating right. You must not be an English first language speaker. But there was a huge amount of trust that Donald Trump would not be swayed by outside forces, particularly in the realm of intelligence, which is what even the Democrats with their bills right now and their investigations, I kind of have to admit, is just so obviously what was going on here.
Right.
But somehow he got to a point where he said, we're not going to do it. A friend of mine one time asked him years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, about the UFO files. He says, the only time I've ever seen him shaken, just visibly irritated, put off of his mark, didn't quite, just like, and just nervous and didn't want to talk about it. We all know that there are certain aspects of modern American governance which, ever since LBJ and Eisenhower, have been doing things that we're not comfortable with. I think we're adult enough to be able to start to have some of the conversations, at least to say, like, listen, it exists, but we're not going to talk about it, as opposed to, shut up, it's not real.
Yes,
and that's what we got.
That's what this is almost like. It is like an argument in a relationship where, I don't like your tone, as Seinfeld once said. Of a woman saying to him, I don't like your tone.
It's an important thing.
And the tone matters here, because what the issue is that you take on, the excuse to actually reform these agencies for real, right? That could be 1,000 different things. They've done a lot of evil things over the last decades. But this really is about reforming the deep state, reforming the administrative state now. And at some point, you're going to make things a lot worse, like John Roberts on the court, by saving the institutions and not actually going in and rooting things out. And like you said, it's treating people like they're children. And maybe you could say, like, back in the 50s or 60s, TV just came on and people were, becoming aware, and you'd cause mass panic or something by taking away faith in these institutions. But now we live in a world in which people do not trust those institutions. That's already the case. And so the danger is, if they don't trust those institutions, who will they trust? They will trust a leader who comes in, or some transformation of American government, right or left, into something else, which, could be good, could be bad, but the most likely thing is it will be bad. If you want to reform the system, you have to do that for real. You have to treat people like they're adults. The American people are ready for this. Most people are more cynical than I think most elites realize, right? I mean, there's a certain sense of this has always been the case. It's like the Vietnam War, right? The nuance of most people with the Vietnam War was, I'm patriotic, but also our government is screwed up, and I haven't lost my faith in America, or I haven't renounced my citizenship. I'm still patriotic, but we're deeply flawed. So let's address those deep flaws at some point, and that's something that I think is. It's easy to say, it's easy for people to desire on air and to bitch about on air. It's a lot harder to actually do in a system that is so large and so weighted down with bureaucracy and with potential battles around every corner. But whether you want to do this or not, what's going to happen, I would predict, in the next few years, is that there's going to be a series of battles where it really comes down to it, to even effectively get through Trump's agenda on things that no one disagrees about. You're going to have to face this thing down. It's not going to go away. So,
the thing that I think that makes it so awkward for the administration and for anyone in power, is if you expose everything that happened, you have to talk about who did it. And not everyone's dead. They're simply not.
Yes.
And I have no real issue with the American intelligence agencies using dark arts that sometimes cause innocents to be lost to have leverage over foreign leaders. But when you start talking about foreign governments having leverage over American presidents, well, that's a different matter.
Yeah.
That's something that actually, and U.S. senators and powerful people in technology, and it's not just us, then that's where people start to say, like, all right, like CIA, whatever you do around the United Nations, I don't care. But I really do care what happened here because it involved a lot of different people. And honestly, we don't know who was involved.
Yeah, well, 1963 was a long time ago, and we're only getting information about the JFK assassination, like actually coming through in declassifying documents now. To your point, there are still a lot of there's obviously a lot of people alive when we talk about the Jeffrey Epstein cases. But when I look at this, right? Okay, so Trump and the administration, they need to switch this narrative, right? We want you to actually go after the deep state. We want to actually get some of the bad guys. But if you're MAGA at large right now, what do you need to see, right? Is this going to be a turning point? I think this could remain to be seen to see how the next few months shake out. But what if you're Trump trying to appease your base right now, and you know that MAGA is upset about this, right? Whether they're giving you all this information or not, I think it's going to seep in that you're going to understand that people aren't exactly okay with everything just moving on. How do you shift the narrative right now and actually do the things that you said you were going to do when you were getting elected?
Well, here, I mean, I don't think I said to a journalist from a not right-leaning paper the other day, I mean, this is not, as Chris has written about, I mean, this is not, a massive civil war within MAGA, or this doesn't threaten the midterms yet or anything like that. But it is a ding, right? So there's a lot of time between now and then. And what I would say is there's plenty of areas in which the administration just needs to execute on its agenda. And if the administration executes on its agenda, it keeps up and doesn't waver on mass deportations and the core parts of what Trump has been talking about since forever, and it keeps doing that, it will be fine. But if there's more like this, right, coming, then that could end up being a problem. But right now, the irony of this is that, as Chris said, the administration is sitting on top. Like, we're talking about one issue within an administration that has had nothing but wins since they started. So it's going to take a lot more to really make a dent when it comes to actual voting. This is a debate within the winning majority bloc that just took over America. That's 55 to 60% of Americans at this point.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I don't know how much they're able to give us, which is why I think this is so bungled. I also have a sneaking suspicion, despite living on the internet myself, that this lives online. That a lot of, I called some good friends whose opinions I really trust. I said, you have signal chat brain over the weekend. You've got Twitter brain. You spend it, I tell you, my parents and my uncles and my cousins who are Republican voters, except for the few, are probably going to gripe about this over cigars at our family reunion, but it is not the focus point. It is not what they're talking about around the dinner table. It is not what they're talking about with their wives and kids. It is not part of their daily lives. The things that are the aspects of the administration which they're promising to execute on, which is going after the colleges, changing American industry, changing the way we pay taxes, changing the way that we interact with foreigners who are here illegally, cracking down on rules, showing that the United States is capable of being involved in foreign countries and foreign conflicts without having to get committed to rebuilding, that we're able to just slam limbs in the door until they need to be amputated and then walk away and not care, making NATO bow, making Harvard scurry, making medals be withdrawn from fake swimmers, showing that the lies are actually true, the lies are actually, truth is actually lies or whatever, exposing the transgender stuff. Extremely important things, and that's what this admin is doing. Those wins will matter more in the midterms.
It will be a topic of discussion, certainly here in the Beltway, but I'm sure that everybody still, if you are very online, you're still going to care about it, at least for a little bit, at least for a little bit longer.